Former President Trump back on Capitol Hill this week talking to Republicans in both the House and Senate. Joining us right now with what his message was to Republican senators, North Dakota Republican Senator Kevin Cramer. Good morning to you. What did you hear from the former president, and what did you think?
Well, first of all, I thought he sounded great. He looked great. He was very upbeat. Obviously, he was among friends, and day before his birthday, we had a little cake to celebrate. But I was most impressed, frankly, just with how gracious he was. The unity theme was more than just a bumper sticker. He was passionate about it, and he called on us to be unified and laid out a really obviously a high level message, but the message focused on policy, which I always appreciate. That's why I like your show. I like my politics in the context of policy. And of course, we have this grand opportunity that the voters this year of being able to compare two people who've been president and who we've experienced. And so I think this is an election about policy. But the unifying message was, I think, the best part of the day and the most important.
But just to clarify, it was a unifying message, I imagine, about unifying the Republican Party behind him in many ways and behind these policies. Unless I'm missing it, this was not a unifying message about bringing the Democrats and the Republicans together, was it?
No, listen, it was a preparation for a campaign, obviously, a general election campaign. We were at the National Republican Senatorial Committee. We're trying to get the Republican majority back in the United States Senate. So we talked about the presidential election in the context of policies, mostly the economy, and how he can be helpful to us, as we can be to him, in helping us achieve our goals of a Republican majority in both the House and Senate, as well as the presidency.
What do you make of some of the polls which suggest that while it may very well be true that he could ultimately win the presidency, that he may not actually be good for the Republicans down ballot?
I don't buy that, quite honestly, and that's where I think he focused a lot, and that is how he can help us being Republican senators, given the fact that we have a couple of very high-profile, you might even call them low-hanging fruit, Republican pickup opportunities in places like West Virginia and Montana, even Ohio. He talked about the role he'd like to play in helping us get those next 3, 4, 5, or 6. There are good 8 to 10 competitive races where Democrats currently hold the seat, and we have very good candidates. And he talked about the role that both the message, which, by the way, isn't overly complicated. Again, the comparison between a Biden administration and a Trump administration, which is pretty easy to do, given that we've all lived through those two things and can compare them and contrast them at a very personal level. But I think for me, his willingness to do that, his offer to participate in our campaigns where we'd like him to participate, and the fact that he was, again, so optimistic about the election. He's feeling an awful lot of momentum out there. I think he's got a better sense in many respects of the national pulse than just about anybody.
So you don't see him even as a polarizing figure even within the party? Well,
listen, we've come through this entire season now of mostly of the primaries where he has unified the party. And again, the policies unify us. And he made that point really clearly. He said, look, when you look at what we are for as a party, that's what unifies us. The other thing that unifies us is a common opponent in Joe Biden and what he's done to this country. Yeah, is he polarizing for some people? Sure. But now that the primaries are over and he's the nominee, I think you're going to see Republicans come together. And I think that's proven, frankly, and he highlighted this point, it's proven by the fact that he has been on a record tear of fundraising since the convictions in the New York court. So all the things they hope polarize us, I think, are actually unifying Republicans.
Are you not troubled at all by both the verdict and the number of cases that are still outstanding against the former president?
No, I'm not troubled by them because, of course, first of all, the verdicts are about a case that was litigated in 2016 by the American public. We are.
But are you personally, as a human being with hopefully some sense of character, troubled by any of this?
I'm troubled by the fact that an attorney, a prosecutor in New York, would take up a case that other prosecutors had declined because there wasn't enough evidence or even really a crime.
By the way,
and fabricate one. That's very
Senator, we
troubling.
can totally. By the way, I think that's a fair debate, and people can have that. I'm asking you a different question. I'm asking you, as a human, as a senator that represents folks, and as somebody who I imagine hopes to be a role model for kids and other people, are you not troubled by the underlying behavior that led to that case and what the underlying behavior that has led to the accusations around what's happened to the vote in 2016? That doesn't trouble you even in the slightest?
So Andrew, here's what I am. I get up every morning grateful that God's grace is greater than my sins. And I believe in redemption. And this 2016 episode is way behind us, and I'm more future-centric than that. And I feel, by the way, the same way about the Biden family's troubles. You've never heard me criticize Joe Biden and Hunter Biden in the context of their legal troubles. We should be about the future. And right now, we have a binary choice. That's what I'm saying. We're down to a binary choice that we have to make as Americans. And I think it's crystal clear when you talk about peace and prosperity and security and safety under Donald Trump, and chaos and uncertainty and high taxes and a bad economy under Joe Biden.